Well, welcome everybody. My name is Bram Elkin. We're very pleased to have this, I think it's number 72 webinar today, and thank you to the National Bank for doing this and getting us up to speed on how they work with our clients' working capital optimization, of course. Thank you to Sagar, who is our president, co-president in Mississauga chapter, along with Derek Van Loon at Lunix law firm. And so Sagar will introduce everyone on the panel today, and we'll have a little bit more to say about the M&A Club at the end of this presentation. It'll be roughly 40 or 45 minutes, followed by Q&A, and we look forward to seeing you then. So welcome to Sagar.
Thanks, Bram. Thanks everyone for joining us again. So we have the honor of having these three esteemed gentlemen with us this afternoon to share some insight on working capital optimization with the National Bank, same place as I'm with. So it's an honor for me to introduce my colleagues. So I'll give you a quick introduction as to who's going to be speaking today, and then I'll pass it over to Lorene to give you some housekeeping rules, and then we'll let our guest take over and share the presentation. So Christian has 25 years of experience in commercial finance, domestic and international. He started his career at BDC, and after completing his MBA, moved to National Bank about 14 years ago, and then to EDC, where he was involved in international direct financing. He's now back with the National Bank on the development side of the supply chain financing division. Stéphane has 30 years of experience in business as commercial bank manager, CFO manufacturing, sales manager for industrial part distributors, and also as a business owner with National Bank since 2019 as a business transfer manager. He's doing M&A since about 2013. Yann worked at supply chain department in National Bank for about 2 years. Previously, he was an account manager at another institution and started his career about 15 years ago in France and worked in banking with many enterprises as an account manager, providing funding for different purposes, machinery, buildings, vehicles, and also M&A and factoring. So a lot of great experience and insight from our panelists this afternoon.
Just a brief presentation of a business transfer team at National Bank. This team exists since 2005 now. We have some specialists in this team. Most of them we are in the commercial industrial financing, but we have one specialist in agricultural, some in IT, health, and pharmacy. Throughout the years, we did 1,700 transactions in the last 16 years. The team's now it's 6 managers in Canada, exclusively for focus on business transfer, and we do yearly of 500 million in financing for business transfer. Our dedicated team of specialists offers advice and support in 2 areas: made-to-measure financing solutions. We'll support our partners, our account manager in this, and transfer planning, including reviewing the main steps involved in bringing in various external specialists as need. We work with accountant, legal professional, tax specialists, HR advisor. Most of our job is to support our customer in all during the timeline project. Christian, Yann, now it's your turn. It's the go for you.
Well, thank you, Stéphane. And thanks for, hi everybody. Thank you for being here with us today. I am Christian Turenne, and I'm here with my colleague Yann Moal. Both of us are with the Supply Chain Financing Division of National Bank. So just a bit of background on this. This division is nothing new at the bank. It's been there for 30 years now. Started small and grew over the years to an extensive, let's say, volume. We've built a good reputation in Canada doing that supply chain financing. And we're the only bank in Canada right now who is a member of FCI. FCI is a group of a financial institution that counts over 400 members around the world. so in more than 90 countries now. All the big international banks are members, and we're part of that group. This group is also doing some surveys, and it seems we are one of the leaders in Canada with a good, strong market share by volume. So our programs are from very small. They start at $1 million and they could go up to 300 million. We actually had some bigger than that in the past, but that's to give you the scale. So we're involved with small businesses up to corporate sized businesses. Our operations are web-based, so our client have access to our system through the web, and it's all secured, of course. And in order to get this strong market share I just mentioned, of course, we are working with competitive financing rate. So we have two main tools at the supply chain financing division. The first one is standard factoring, and the other one is reverse factoring. Today, we'll only focus on the standard factoring side of business. So maybe just a little refresher on that. The tool itself is very simple, of course, but as usual, the devil is in the details. But the basic is simple. We are purchasing receivables. So our client, the seller, as we call it here, will provide the goods and services as part of the contract. And once he does that, he can invoice. And at the same time, he will assign us this invoice. He will sell it to us, in other words. And we will pay this invoice within 24 to 48 hours after the assignment. At the end of the term that has been negotiated, then the buyers will pay us. So it's a simple process, but one important thing to underline here is that our factoring is on a non-recourse basis. So we are not, the risk of the buyers is actually transferred to us. If something happened with that credit, it's our problem. So we are not putting new debt or leverage into the books of our client. We're actually buying some assets, non-recourse. So this is a very important distinction, as since we are not putting more debt in the book, we're buying assets. We call this type of factoring off balance sheet, which is the basic of these programs. Now, who can benefit from these programs?
Question for you, just a moment. Are the ultimate buyers advised of the program, or could this be invisible to them?
Well, that's a good question already. Actually, it could be both, depending on how the program is set up. So in some cases, they will be advised. In some others, it could be what we call invisible or non-notified. So we have the flexibility of looking at both sides of the, let's say, equation.
Okay.
So who will benefit from those programs? I was going. Actually, those programs are aimed at any companies who are looking to increase their liquidities and at the same time improve their balance sheet presentation. So actually, some of our clients are coming to us mostly for the liquidities, but some others are coming to us mostly for the other side of the equation, which is the balance sheet presentation. In all cases, though, the clients will benefit from both. Since we're buying the receivables, as I mentioned, and they're out of the books, the program will, at the onset, free up the liquidities that are locked into the account receivables. And this could be very important. We often hear some companies or some clients say, well, I could get this contract, but the buyer is insisting on 90-day term, and I will not be able to support that, or cannot be able to support that right now. So this is a way to, in fact, go get those contracts and maybe offer better terms than the competition will do, while not tying up your money into accounts receivables, since we'll buy them and we'll monetize them right away. So it could be a marketing tool to get more sales to start with, or simply to untie this liquidity that is locked into these account receivables. They are rotating, but still the money is locked in there. While you're selling those assets off your balance sheet, the other benefit effect is that it will improve certain financial ratios. Of course, the DSO, the day sales outstanding. Since you're reducing your book of receivable, clearly the rotation will reduce. But it could also have some interesting impact on other ratios. if the liquidities that is generated is used to reduce some liabilities on the other side of the balance sheet, well, your working capital ratio or even the quick ratio will improve, and potentially some leverage ratio like your funded debt on EBITDA ratio. So those are very interesting, let's say, side effects of offloading some of your receivables that are very attracting to some companies. At the end, what those programs are doing is that they're trying to optimize the working capital requirement of a firm and its cash cycle. The cash cycle, as you will all remember, is the difference between the time when you have to pay your payables and the time it will take to rotate your inventories into sales and then collect those sales. So if your rotation of inventory is 60 days and your collection is another 60, and then you have to pay your payables at 30 days, well, the gap there is 90 days. So this could be long and hard to support in some cases and could require some debt. So the goal here, of course, if you theoretically, let's take my example, and this company would sell the entire book of receivables, well, this DSO would be 0, and the actual gap will fall from 90 days to 30 days, which is a lot easier to support. And of course, will require less debt to do so. So the solution, well, I was saying will reduce potentially the debt component. And this could be interesting in a leverage buyout program, as we'll see in the next slide, actually. But it could also bring some other improvements, some other, let's say, advantages. One of them could be improve or even maintain your attractive conditions in the pricing grid. So let's say your bank or your syndicate is proposing a pricing grid, which could be based on some leverage ratio. Well, if you go and reduce the funded debt on EBITDA ratio because you're using those liquidities that are liberated from accounts receivable to pay down some debt, well, you could fall into another level of your grid and then get a better pricing. So this is another side advantage that is potentially available with such a program. Of course, and this, as I mentioned, is what a lot of
Chris,
company.
I have two questions for you.
Yes, please.
If it's good for you, it's good timing.
Yes, of course.
Okay. First one, how is this process different than the process target clientele that bring finance offers?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay. How is this process different
Yes.
than the process the client offer you to bring finance offers? If you, when you ask to the customer, probably the question is asking is when you give the offer to a customer to pay you earlier with the 1.5 or 2% rebate on your invoice, what is the difference?
Well, there's a big difference in the sense that you will get those rebates if you pay your supplier early. And in fact, well, here we're talking about your buyers. So what we're trying to do here is to reduce the delay you have to wait for your buyers to pay you. So, but that also is interesting because if you get your money early by using a receivable purchase agreement program, well, you can actually take that money, revert back. You can lower your line of credit or you can pay your payables early also. You can actually negotiate with your suppliers since you have this available liquidity and try to negotiate a rebate by paying them early. So there's no limit of what you can do with the money once you have it, of course. You can pay down your line of credit, you can pay down your payables, you can leave the money into your cash. So it's everything is possible once you you liberate these liquidities from your receivables.
The other one is, do you offer any form of PO financing in combination with your factoring service?
No, unfortunately, we no, it's a very
I
good
knew the
question.
answer, but
Yeah, well, it's a very good question, and I know that some other division of the bank are looking at that actually, and there are some program existing out there, but it's not within our division.
Okay.
We are strictly purchasing receivables after delivery, once the sale is committed. So if that answers the question, I was going through here, which is of course the improvement of the balance sheet, which, as I was saying, is what some companies are looking for primarily. Some large corporate are not necessarily chasing after liquidities when they offload some receivables. They just want to present better ratio. One of them, of course, the DSO, but also, as I mentioned, the working capital. And at the end of the day, it could have a positive impact on free cash flow.
Mhm.
And as we all know, cash is king, and this is what you want to present. And the fact that you will, let's say, have a better not presentation, but let's say some of your ratio will improve doing that. Your balance sheet will improve. You may, at the end of the day, even get a better rating once this is sent through a bank risk rating system. And so this could have a positive impact on that end too, which, as we know, has an impact on pricing in general. So it's like a boule de neige that starts when you start a program like that. Another thing that some of our clients are doing with those programs is to take the liquidities that are generated and bring them up to the investors. So through dividends payment to the shareholders often. So we see that organization which have numerous subsidiaries, and in fact, Yann will have the chance to present you a quick case on exactly that after my part. So companies who have numerous subsidiaries, and the head office will simply ask those subsidiaries to offload part of the receivables so that the money that is liberated there could be upstream to the holding company. And some will actually ask those subsidiaries to maintain their DSO at a maximum level of X, say 45 days. That doesn't prevent them to go get some 80 days type of contract. They will simply offload those through the program. So they'll keep the DSO as required, and the money that is liberated through the program could be upstream to the holding company or the shareholders.
Question, Chris. Are you purchasing international receivables too?
Yes, absolutely.
Not only domestic, huh?
No.
Okay.
It could be everywhere technically. Of course, the actual risk of the buyers has to be assessed. Since we're taking over that risk has to be assessed by us. And well, some is easy, some are public companies, some are less easy, of course. In some cases, and this is an important point, we will have them insured, the book or the receivables we will buy. By the way, it doesn't have to be the whole book of receivables. A client could pick and choose, could decide to sell only this or that one. Often they'll decide to sell a couple of receivables that represent a large amount. So there's no need to sell 100% of your books if in fact 20% will get 80% of the money you are looking for. So it's quite, let's say, adaptable. Let's put it that way. So this is, I mentioned that the actual program could be used to upstream some money to the shareholders. Now, if we look a little more closely at what we can do, because all that I explained is good for companies in general. So those programs ongoing will provide those benefits in general to the companies. Now, if we look now a little bit more closely at what they could do in an LBO situation at the time of closing. So there's two main advantages here that could be used out of a program at the closing stage. One of them, of course, is to secure those assets, the accounts receivables. Clearly, they could make up an interesting percentage of of the assets of a company. Sometimes it's about 50%. And although the due diligence will actually establish that they're real and that they're due, at the end of the day, until you have collected them, well, there's still some uncertainty, right? So when you get into a program, a receivable purchase agreement program, all the buyers that are put onto the program are secured. So you are going to be paid by us. So after that, it's just a question for the company to decide when they want to issue their assignment to us. But all the buyers that are put into the actual program will be covered. We're taking this risk and we can pay the minute the assignment is sent. So payment is secured, and actually you will avoid the delay of payment or the potential default risk of a buyer by doing that. So this important part of the balance sheet, which are the accounts receivable, are secured. So this could be very important. In some cases, again, it doesn't have to be the whole book of a company, but it could be concentrated on a few names. And sometimes the client will be concentrated on a certain buyer. It could be sometimes 60% of their sale with someone. It's just sound management to offload part of this through a program like that. It doesn't have to be the whole book, as I said, but could be a part of it. So this is a way to secure this important asset that is the accounts receivable during such a transfer, an LBO program. And the other very interesting part is that if you set up a receivable purchase agreement at the same time that you're setting up your LBO program, you can actually use it on day one, which means that the liquidity that you'll generate by monetizing a block of account receivable at day one, at closing, could be used to complete the program, to in fact reduce the debt component of this leverage buyout. As per the name, say, leverage buyout entails a lot of debt, and sometimes this, let's say, leverage ratios will go into some at some levels that will make, let's say, financial institution well, not uneasy, because that's what the program, it's how it's set up. But still, we could be, let's say, in higher levels than we would normally be, and everything is going to go down in the next few months and years. But if you use a program like that at closing, well, you could put your balance sheet in a more comfortable position day one. We can have a look here at a quick example. Hopefully, these are not too small.
Two questions for you, Chris, before, if
Yes,
if it's good for you.
of course.
Do we need to sell the whole book of receivables, or we can pick and choose?
Oh, okay. So I think I mentioned that, but
Yeah, okay.
no, but still, the answer is yes. You can pick and choose.
Okay.
So there's no requirement to sell the entire books at all.
Okay.
You can decide to sell one buyer for whatever. So it's all, let's say, custom tailored to what the client needs are. And actually, as I mentioned, the 20/80 rule is often used. So who are those 20% of buyers who
Okay.
represents almost 80% of the sales? So that's where often we'll concentrate.
Okay. And sometimes is it possible that you have some guarantee on your receivables, like ADC and some insurance?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yes. In some cases, we'll go to. We do have insurance policies from EDC, actually, as you mentioned. We also have another insurance policy with the private insurer, Hermes. And sometimes our clients actually will put on their own insurance policy, which will
Okay.
transfer to a tripartite agreement. So yes, it's quite often used actually to mitigate the buyer risk.
Okay. I'll let you go.
Okay, thanks. So this is a simplified balance sheet, of course, just for the sake of this this argument, this discussion, where after this is day one, we're closing, and this would be the balance sheet at that point. So you'll see that we are getting 4 million of long-term debt, and then there's 3.5 million of usage of the line of credit to complete. So in this particular example, at day one, we have a funded debt to EBITDA ratio of 4.29, although the bank is looking at 3.75 in, let's say, the medium term. So this would be acceptable at closing. This will be set up like that. but there's an understanding that the company will deleverage during the next years, and that we will get to this ratio at some point. Working capital is at 1.28, and you have a cash gap here of 23 days, which is, in this example, quite reasonable, actually. We often see a lot longer than that. So for this argument, let's say that there's a program in place at closing, and the company will actually sell on the spot 4 million out of 7 of accounts receivable. So the accounts receivable are down to 3 million. The 4 million that is generated is used to pay down entirely the line of credit. So the financial flexibility is given back to this company that is starting again, which after the LBO, of course. There's even a balance in the cash account. And the impact on your funded debt to EBITDA ratio is quite interesting in this case, in this example. We're down to 2.29. So this is fictitious, of course, but you can do the calculation easily with some balance sheets, and the impact is always there. So day one, you're already within what the bank would target, and you already have a working capital, of course, that is improved to 1.4. In this case, the cash gap is nullified. It's now 0. This would be a very, very interesting position, of course. But at the end of the day, the balance sheet is very well set up to start on day one. A lot less stressful, let's say, on the leverage side than it was just before. So this was a quick example, but in any example you'll try, you'll see the effect. It's easy to calculate, of course. Any question at this point on this?
Nothing for the moment.
Okay.
Let me. Can you walk us through the EG again? Where was the line of credit?
The EG, sorry, I'm not familiar with EG. I mean, this example? Yes, this example. Yeah, sorry. The line of credit was here.
Exactly.
Yes, sorry. So the line of credit was here, the bank loan at 3.5. So by selling 4 million of receivables, it's actually extinguished to 0. And there's still 500 in the bank account. As I said, it's a simplified high-level example, but it's the reality in this case. And then, of course, the impact, the money could have been used to, let's say, have a lower long-term debt level or whatever. But in our example, we simply repaid the bank loan completely.
Mm-hmm.
And the effect, of course, on the funded debt to EBITDA was that a reduction below the target that the bank was setting. So again, it's just a question of having the day one after your leverage buyout, a balance sheet that is easier to work with more financial flexibility. That's the goal here. Not only day one in terms of the liabilities that will be in the book, but also in terms of cash cycle, and working capital requirement. Because if you reduce your cash gap here, in this example, it's 0, but in any case, it will be reduced by the number of days that your DSO will reduce. In this case, it's 42 days back to 18. So you're just giving some flexibility to your company, to your client from day one.
Question for you, Chris. In this example, what is the cost of interest on the line of credit versus the cost of factoring? Is it nearly the same, or?
Yeah, it's a good question for sure, and it's quite the same. Of course, our primary risk in factoring is the buyer. We're taking over this risk. Where if the risk was entirely on the buyer, let's say we would have a promissory note from these guys to pay us, well, we would price exactly what the credit risk of the buyer is, or the insurer that is behind it. Since we don't get those promissory notes, there's still always also a performance risk component, which is our seller, our client risk. So we have to, let's say, compound those two risks into a pricing. At the end of the day, it's usually maximum the line of credit pricing or below. This is the interest rate that we're charging for the term. So let's say we're buying some 60 days receivables, we'll charge this interest rate for 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's an annual rate. And in some cases, there could be an administration fee based on the volume purchase, but this depends of the size of the actual program. So that would be a flat fee, a percentage of the value of the invoices that will represent also the administration we have to do to collect those. So it will depend on the type of program we're looking at. In some cases, when the program is a very large program, it's invisible, so the client's not notified. Our client is still doing the collection. In those cases, sometimes there's no administration fee. There's simply this straight financing fee component that I mentioned. So there's a bit case by case here, but at the end, it remains quite competitive. So so that's it for this example. As I said, high level example of the impact on the ratio that could bring the program. So two things, well, not two things, but let's say two important things to remember here is the impact of your leverage by offloading these receivables off the books, and the impact on your cash gap, which is your cash cycle, which is the number of days your money is actually tied into producing process, which of course entails often a lot of debt to support. So it's all a question of reducing this cash gap and borrow less, so less leverage in the books. Now I will hand over to my colleague Yann, who will run through an actual case, one of his clients' situation, which I mentioned a little earlier, which is a situation where the program is set up to funnel some money up to the parent company. Yann?
Yes. Give me 1 minute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, yes, I will talk about an example we have today in our portfolio. We talk about a group producing a transformed metal used in different industries like paint, like energy, automobile. So in 2016, private equity fund acquired the parent company, which operated in Europe, and which already had several subsidiaries on the world. The parent company continued strategic acquisitions, including one in Canada in early 2019. At this time, they already had a subsidiary in United States, but not in Canada. So they want to become a market leader in this industry. And the needs was the group has a cash pooling agreement managed by the parent company. So cash pooling is a system that allows centralized management of subsidiaries account of the same group, and that optimizes cash management. It permits to move liquidity around inside the company. And the sales of accounts receivables from the subsidiaries is the main method used to fund this account. So they used to do that with other subsidiaries on the world, in Norway, in Sweden, in Asia also, and they wanted to do that also in North America. So the solution was to establish a factoring line of 15 million used by both companies in Canada and in United States to monetize the accounts receivables and to pay dividends to the private equity fund and ultimately to the shareholders of the fund for sure. And they wanted to continue to expand the group by making other acquisitions. Also to repay the debts, like Christian explained, to repay the debt, especially the acquisition debt. And Christian explained also that to improve the financial ratios of the whole group and meet the requirements of the various creditors in the program And the main method, the only method used by the group for the short terms, for financing the short term, is factoring, is to sell the accounts receivable. So we're very happy to work with them. It's a good program. And it's a good example of when a factoring program is interesting in an LB operation, and when it could help, it could be the better solution to the short term. Yeah.
Thank you, Yann.
Christian.
So I think this covers the PowerPoint presentation. We're 5 minutes early.
You're too good, Chris.
Yeah, well, in conclusion, as I mentioned, we are involved with programs of all sizes, so we can work with small enterprises from 1 million up to actual corporate company, public company. We have programs, as I mentioned, above 300 million. Clearly, the requirement, let's say, what those companies are looking for are not the same. Corporates are mostly for the window, let's say, window dressing, the, let's say, balance sheet improvement side of the equation, while smaller companies are mostly there for liquidities. But as I mentioned, both will benefit from both sides of the equation, liquidities and balance sheet improvement. So that's it for me.
Okay. Good, Chris. I had a question a few moments ago, and just adding some information. And Sagar, you'll probably be able to support me in the in this answer.
Sure.
Someone asked me if we do only working capital optimization in business transfer at National Bank. For sure not. In Sagar, we do asset financing, we do cash flow loan, and in Quebec now, not outside Quebec for the moment, but we hope in few months or a few years, we also do equity fund. If we have a transaction in Quebec, we are able to support you with our new fund. Hoping we're going to have one available in few for Ontario and somewhere else.
Looking forward to that for sure.
we hope we work on it for the moment, and we closed our first investment this morning, the first one in Quebec City. That's a great day for our equity fund. It's a brand new one.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's definitely available in Quebec, and as you mentioned, we're hoping to see that soon in Ontario.
Yeah. If you have any question, yeah, Bram.
Stéphane, can you tell us, without mentioning the name, the type of company in Quebec City, what type of industry and what type of conditions that made you make that decision?
In business transfer?
No,
in equity fund.
In the
equity fund, it's manufacturing company. We invest 11 million in equity in this project. But we also look for some other transaction in the near future. We are able to do mezz debt, debentures, or equity, depend of the project. We are very flexible.
Coming back to the factoring, I assume that there's a credit reference or credit check or a rating of the receivable. So let's say the manufacturer or the supplier, one of your clients wants to ship $100,000 of product, and you say, well, we'll only take 80,000. So he insists on shipping 100,000. So what happens to the 20,000? He's responsible?
Yes. So the way it's set up, we will look at, let's say, the number of buyers that the client will be interested to sell. And we'll put a limit on each of them. So say a buyer will have a $100,000 limit, which would be a small limit, but it's possible. Then we are able to purchase up to $100,000 worth of receivables. Everything above that stays in our client's book. So he can, of course, sell 200 to them, but we will only buy 100,000.
I see. Okay.
We have a question, an interesting question from Jérôme. So how long does the process take to set up the supply chain financing?
So this is a good question, of course, and it's a regular doodle process. Say we are setting, sorry, say we're setting up a program to go through an LBO. We'll tag along and we'll be ready at the same time as everybody else. So it's not overly long. It's just a question of assessing the credit risk of the buyers. And of course, in parallel, the credit risk of the supplier. As I mentioned, there's that component. Both are important to us. So we have the buyer risk that we're taking over. We have the seller risk that we have to assess. The seller risk being any good legitimate reason that the buyer will have not to pay. So in some cases, the buyer will not pay for very legitimate reason. And in those cases, we'll have to revert back to our client to get a reimbursement because the account receivable or part of it is not due, is extinguished. So this is a performance risk, we call it, and this is something we have to assess too. Both are done in tandem, so we will come up with a program in a decent, in a reasonable time frame.
There is a question here, and I don't remember if it was already answered or not, just in case it was missed. What's the cost of interest on the line of credit versus the cost to factoring?
Yeah, well, no, I went over that.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to be sure because if
okay.
it's been completed, that's okay.
It's been covered.
Okay,
So
perfect.
we have a participant who raised a hand, so I'm going to open first the mic of Richard Morrison. Richard, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yes, it's to you.
Yeah, the question is for Christian. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. Always interesting to hear more about financing option. So if you allow me 3 questions, the first one will be about market size. Last number I've got is from 2012, 8 billion volume per year. So I would assume 1.52 billion outstanding, which might sound large, but it's basically nothing versus commercial and corporate book. What will be the market size today?
The global market in Canada, you mean?
Yeah, in Canada.
Well, it's an interesting question, actually. I don't have the latest because who is gathering those is FCI, as I mentioned, this group, which we're a member of. So I don't have they are currently doing their 2020 survey. I don't have, it's not out yet. So I don't have the latest and greatest.
We also, Christian, so we have a US bank. They're doing factoring also. And it's difficult to know how much and they have in their book.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
but
yeah,
just, well, if we follow the trend of the past 5 years, let's say, the actual growth rate, compounded annual growth rate was something like 12% per year in volume, but that's worldwide. So I'm not sure for the actual number for North America, but it must be in sync with that. So it is growing because factoring, as you may know, is not what it used to be and looked at as a last resort type of thing for business that are in problems. As you noticed during this presentation, we're not talking about that at all. We're just talking about optimizing your cash cycle, and by the same way, by the same token, your balance sheet presentation. So it's not, we're not there anymore, and in fact, the product is growing. And we haven't touched the reverse factoring side of the equation because it's less, let's say, pertinent to this M&A discussion, but it's there, and this is growing fast also all across the world.
Okay. Regarding the way actually it's accounted for, I would assume you design your product to facilitate actually a sales of receivable rather than an increase in financing, helping the covenants like you mentioned. Does that pass the test with the accountant? Do they all agree that it should be booked as a sale rather than as financing?
That's a great question. It's important. So of course, for private companies, it's less stringent. So their interest is to sell the receivable, it's off their book. And as far as they're concerned, the asset is gone and they have reduced their debt accordingly. So as far as public company are concerned, it could be different. In these cases, we need to sit down, well, not sit down, but send our contract to their auditors so they can have a look at it and approve the off-balance sheet treatment. So there's some flexibility in those contracts up to a point. And then after that, it depends on the auditors. And in fact, within a firm, it could be different from one to the other, you know.
So better to validate first. As a third question in the last
Absolutely. No, that's a good point. Sorry if I'm interrupting you, but if this is very important for a client because it's a public company, this is done early. We're sending draft copies of those documents early in the process so they can validate, yeah, okay, this is off balance sheet for me.
Yeah. Corporate loan tend to have actually a lot of emphasis on debt to EBITDA. It's like a religious book, not to mention any. So any restriction in credit agreement that will restrict either the use of factoring off balance sheet purchase of account receivable, or will limit the impact, the benefit impact on the debt to EBITDA? And would you have the same answer for commercial loan?
Well, actually, the same answer for commercial, just to understand, you mean versus corporate?
Well, corporate, let's say 25, 20, 25, 35, depending on the bank you're talking to, loan versus under $20 million loan. So corporate versus commercial.
So there could be some restriction in a syndicate loan agreement or in a bank loan agreement, of course, to selling your receivables. But usually this is waived when a program is put in place because they see the benefit of it. At the end of the day, if you just unlock some of the liquidities from your balance sheet and you reduce some liabilities with it, it's just good for the company, right? So usually it's as we just went through, it's beneficial for your leverage ratio. So since it's not going to let's say deteriorate these ratio, on the contrary, usually banks will go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
We do have a couple. Yeah, go ahead, Lorraine.
We have another participant who requests to speak, so I'm gonna open the mic of Rajneesh.
Hi.
Rajneesh, it's over to you.
Yeah, no, I still can't wrap my head around the example that you gave with the metal and the three companies. So was it a parent company, or you said it was a private equity? So if it's a private equity like fund, and then they had three subsidiaries, and then can you maybe in 60 seconds be able to walk me through that again? I didn't quite get how a private equity fund was able to now have cash, and then I just didn't understand your example.
I leave that to you, Yann.
Yann?
So we have the parent company operated in the industry of transformed metal, and this company was booked by a private equity fund. So that was the first step. After, the company continued to acquire other company in this transformed metal, and one was in Canada. So we have the parent company, we have the equity fund who own the parent company, and we don't have three subsidiaries. I think we're around 9 or 10. The schema it's for the example also to explain the movement of liquidity inside the company and inside the cash pooling, because the cash pooling is in the parent company, and the cash pooling is found by the sale of the accounts receivable in the subsidiaries.
But don't they need that work, that cash that you're providing? Isn't that then to pay their suppliers? So then if you take it out and you, for example, you pay the line of credit, aren't you actually taking money out of their cash flow?
Yeah, all the cash flow, the
Yes,
target is to put all the cash flow in the parent company, and with this cash flow they are able to make some other acquisition. That's a target for the parent company.
One of the point and one of the discussion with the credit department is in NBC was to conserve a good working capital in the subsidiary in Canada to continue to normal function. you know, to have to pay the supplier, to pay the, because you can't move all the liquidity from the subsidiary to the parent company. It's not possible. So today in this program, we have a covenant, especially to conserve a good working capital ratio in Canada and in USA.
Okay.
If we think of the cash flow statement of the company and we look at the variation of working capital, well, the receivables, let's say, would be down from 8 million in past year to 4 this year. So there's 4 million of cash generated right there and then. So this money could be taken to pay dividend actually.
Yeah.
What is Yann, what is your working capital ratio that each subdivision has to maintain right now? It's probably 120, 125?
In this case, it was in dollars.
Okay.
Not in ratio.
Okay, it's in dollars. Okay.
Yeah, we
okay.
want to maintain.
And,
yeah.
okay, and the target is to everything over this this dollars target. Everything is will be pushed in the parent company.
Yeah.
All extra cash will be in the parent company to be able to finance some other acquisition.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, Stéphane.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I want to answer another question about the pricing, because I see the question with the case Christian talked about. It's one of my clients, so I know them very well. And to be honest, the interest rate of the line of credit, because the client has got a line of credit and a factoring program, the interest rate is absolutely the same between the factoring program and the line of credit. But we have pricing about insurance, because effectively insurance credit, it's specific to the factoring program. And if the client doesn't have insurance for the other client using the line of credit, it's something more. And like Christian say, we have a little administration fees because we are specific in the supply chain, but it's really not a lot. So the interest fees, it's exactly the same between the line of credit and the factoring program.
Very good. Yann, Christian, Stéphane, thank you so much for the great presentation and great insight. Lorene will provide some housekeeping rules on the deck, because it will be sent out to all the folks that participated in our workshop this afternoon. So we'll share that with you, and Lorene can give some details to that. As for the M&A Club Mississauga chapter, we want to thank Stéphane, Christian, and Yann for the great presentation again. Our next presentation will be on May 19th, which will be by Firepower Capital. So just please make sure you do register for that. Topic and information will be sent out over email. Bram, I'll turn it over to you, and then Lorene can provide information on how everyone can get access to this deck and from today's presentation.
Sure. Thanks, Sagar, and thanks, Stéphane, and everyone from National Bank. This was really interesting, and for sure an in-depth expose of what actually goes on in factoring, and it's a little bit unusual maybe for the banks. So that's great. Thank you very much. I want to welcome, of course, everyone, but particularly new members, and we have some guests today. Everyone will receive, as per usual, the attendee list with contact info. So that's one of our value adds. We're working, as you know, with Salesforce. Salesforce administers our member administration, but we're expanding the platform of Salesforce in our particular situation to a portal called Community, which Salesforce calls Community, and the deal listing will eventually be there so that members can put up and take down, edit their own deals and send their own teasers to members interactively, which is more difficult now. The other thing is we're going to have a member directory in a different way. So if you want to find a member, let's say, for argument's sake, bridge financing in Vancouver. So you're going to first put in the province that you're interested in. And right now we're in 4 provinces, although we have a member in Yukon, believe it or not. Welcome. And then you're going to put in the expertise. We have close to 50 different categories, buy, sell, different types of banking, of course, factoring and PO financing and ABL and valuation and FX and all kinds of different expertise. So you'll put in that, and each member will have either one or more than one, some cases several different expertise or professions that he wants to be known for. And so you'll be able to find that person, relatively easily. In the old days, as it were, we're 12 years old or something, we used to send out a general Excel list, but of course, it's not really, it's difficult to find the type of person that you're looking for. So we're going to segment it down, and that's coming hopefully in the not too distant future. In the meantime, the webinars continue. We're going to continue right through. I think that probably when the COVID situation is over, we will continue, of course, with particularly the M&A Club Connect, which is our virtual roundtable meeting, and other really interesting subjects such as today. We'll probably always in this new world have webinars, which of course go across Canada. So we're very pleased again with this evolution of the M&A Club, and we hope to get back to live meetings and combine with our webinars. So thank you very much again, everyone, and we'll see you soon. There's still a few more webinars coming in April. There's some really interesting ones coming in May, in particular. Angela Noche, who's a senior M&A partner with Blake's, he's on our board, and Angela always gives an M&A review of Blake's stats and metrics, in addition to the ABA, the American Bar Association, who publish all kinds of information and stats and metrics on M&A activity in North America, and in particular Quebec, and in particular, of course, Ontario and Canada. So that's a review he does annually. It's most interesting, and I encourage you to participate in that. I think it's May 12th, I believe it is, but you can check on the schedule. Okay, and if some of you are not getting these notices for whatever reason, you could always check your junk or not trash, but your junk or spam folders, because sometimes these things wind up there. But we do send out the mailings regularly. We also have new chapter leaders in Vancouver and well, Calgary is the same, but we've made a little bit of a change. Greg Shannon is still our Gowling's partner, chapter president in Calgary, but we have Cindy Laval now, who's a lady who is specialized in M&A with Gowling's in Vancouver. And that change is going to be announced in the coming days. So thank you very much, everyone. And we'll stay in touch. And any comments or questions, don't hesitate to let us know. And if there's any Francophones in the audience, this presentation will be given in French very soon. So thank you, Stéphane Bourgeois, for organizing all this. And thanks again to Sagar and Derek.
Thanks, Bram. Thanks, Sagar.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day, everyone. Stay
Have a
safe.
good day.
Have a good day.